Good evening, Philippines. Good morning, good afternoon, world. Welcome to another interesting episode of the English Blog. We're a blog of English teachers by English teachers and for English teachers. I'm Adrian.
I'm Christine.
I'm PJ.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the English Blog team.
Today's episode, Season 3, Episode 5, we are talking about different roads to becoming an ESL teacher. So if you would like to hear some of our personal stories about becoming ESL teachers, as well as different ways that you can become a teacher, then this episode is just for you.
Don't forget that we provide services. We can customize lesson plans, curriculum map, and unit plan for you. We also offer life and career coaching services. Make sure to catch our weekly vlog and do come visit us at www.theenglishblog.com so you can read all our blog content related to ESL education.
You can find us all across social media. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. We are on them all and we are here for you. Whatever platform you prefer, just take a screenshot of our handles here and send us a message wherever you want and we will get back to you. And across all those platforms, you can find new blog content, new blog posts, and get in touch with us.
And as you guys watch this episode, don't forget to share it with your family and friends on Facebook and all the social media platforms, as well as let us know where you guys are watching us from. What do you do for a living? What keeps you busy? And if you have any questions or insights that you would like to share with us as you guys are watching this episode tonight. And here comes the first question. How did you become a teacher? So when I was in elementary school, I remember in grade 5 when I started to dream of becoming a teacher. And then when I turned high school, when I graduated from high school, I noticed that all the teachers get left behind while the students graduate and they go to college and then they have their own life. They go to other parts of the world while the teachers stay at school. And I said, I'm having separation anxiety. I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want to be left behind. So I thought I'll just set that aside because I don't want to be left behind. But while I was taking my second course in college, after our college dean found out that I have certification for IELTS and TESOL, she asked me to teach English to college students and also gave me some units to teach for Introduction to Philosophy. So then, after finishing my second course in college, I enrolled for a certificate in teaching program where I got 18 units. And then this year, I actually registered for a licensure exam for teachers and I passed it. So that's actually a dream come true. That's how I became a teacher.
So I never thought that I'd one day become a teacher. If you had asked me when I was a child what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said a doctor. And then when I was in high school, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. That all changed, of course, when I went to college. I went to Tulane University in New Orleans, and I was living in an apartment with a friend. It was a very nice apartment, and I needed a way to pay for it. So I applied for a job as a behavioral therapist, and that sounds super random, like as a part-time job for a college student, but I actually found it on the job board at Tulane University. So I thought it was perfect. I immediately applied for the position and I got it. I got dozens of hours of training under a BCBA, which stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And little did I know at the time that that position would not only involve providing behavioral therapy to children who fall under the autism spectrum, but it would also involve quite a bit of teaching, because the purpose of that school is to train students or prepare them for life in a conventional school environment. So I did a bit of teaching there and I enjoyed it very much. It was a very rewarding experience for me. And so I wanted to explore other opportunities in teaching. So while I was a behavioral therapist at this place, which was called Within Reach Center for Autism, I created an account on this website called wisant.com. And I was just looking to tutor middle schoolers and high schoolers, maybe even college students. And I did end up getting people to tutor in those areas at those grade levels. And one day someone messaged me asking me to teach ESL to his relatives. And I barely even knew what ESL was and what it stood for. But being the daring and risk taker, the daring risk taking person that I was, I took that opportunity in a heartbeat, and it turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I saw these people who happened to be adults in their early to mid 20s get full time positions because of their ability to speak English. And for me, I just felt like teaching was my calling. And fast forward a few months, I went to the Philippines to visit family. And in the process, I found that there was a job opening at entering colleges for an ESL teaching position. And I applied for it. I got it. And I've been here ever since. It's going on almost 3 years now. And while at entering colleges, they provided me TESOL certification for free as part of my training at Enderin. And here I am now.
So for me, it was kind of random, a little random, because actually I went to Sarah Lawrence in New York because I wanted to study theater. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to get a practical degree from a liberal arts school, and then I'm going to see if I can do this theater thing. And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. But I was too afraid. Like when I finally got to New York, I realized just how much work and risk and such a thick skin it would I would need to be a stand-up comedian. And I just like I just could not handle that level of rejection. I mean, it's brutal. That kind of work is brutal. And I guess, because I'm a Virgo, like I like stability, and I thought, well, how can I tell my jokes and still be intelligent, and use my brain? And I worked so hard at school, I might as well do something with it. I said, that's it. I'll be a teacher. They have no choice but to laugh at my jokes. But sometimes they don't. And that's perfectly okay too. I just like having an audience. And, actually, when I started teaching just volunteering initially. I was volunteering at schools, and I took a semester off, and I started to do peer counseling for the LGBT Youth Center and National LGBT Hotline. And, I really loved guiding people. I really loved mentoring young people. And so actually, my first job out of college was as a youth counselor in a drop-in center and homeless shelter for homeless and runaway youth in San Francisco. And I loved working with teenagers. I mean, when I tell people I love working with teenagers, they think I am crazy. They really think, what is wrong with you? And I love them because they just, they make me laugh, they challenge me, and it's just so, it's amazing to be able to get their attention. And so and to be able to influence their lives. And I was like, wait a minute, I could really like have like a cult following if I do this. So, my megalomania kicked in, and I was like, okay, I better look at this seriously. So after I was a youth counselor, I got my CELTA certificate, um, which is probably the best known TESOL certificate because it's issued by the University of Cambridge. So I did that at a school in San Francisco, and then I came back to the Philippines, and I started my career here as a language trainer in the BPO industry rather. And that was fun. It was really a lot of fun because I got to teach customer service and sales, and I had such a natural rapport with my well, I guess my trainees at that time. And so later on, I decided, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. And I went back to San Francisco and I got my teaching credential. So I'm actually licensed by the state of California right now. And that was back in 2010. And then recently I was like, well, you know what? I should probably update my certifications. So in 2018, I took the LET exam for teachers here in the Philippines, and I did quite well. And yeah, I've been teaching for several years now. I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else with my existence.
Unlike PJ, I do have an existence outside of teaching, and I've always been a teacher and had another job. So I've been teaching English for over 5 years now, but I've also been working kind of parallel for 7 years in museums and libraries in a completely unrelated thing. I started teaching English because I wanted to help people. Specifically, I wanted to help women. And specifically, I was living in Florida and it has a large immigrant population. And I said, I want to help immigrant women. And I was 19 and had no skills. And I said, how can I help them? The skill that you have is English. And so I was a volunteer tutor for many years for recent immigrants to the US in both Florida and later in Virginia. And that is how I got my start teaching. And then I liked it. I like connecting with people, just as Christine, Adrian, and PJ have said. It's kind of addicting. You like to be around people. You want to help people, and you can see the real changes that you're making. You're really helping them achieve their goals. So I liked teaching, and I was getting pretty good at it with all of this practice. So I decided to move to Europe, partly because I just wanted to live in Europe as well. And that's when I started teaching abroad as a language assistant, which we'll talk more about later in the video. But that's where I really started teaching for most of my time. Still kept my library job. And yeah, now on the English blog, I am really happy because I feel like it is a continuation of what I love doing, which is teaching. And now that I have some experience in teaching, I can help teach the teachers and reach and help even more people out there in the world.
Wow, I'm just blown away by the impressive credentials of my colleagues here at the English blog, and just really interesting stories to get to know your not only colleagues but now friends too. And we also want to hear your stories, guys. So as you guys watch this, please leave your stories in the comment section, and we'd love to hear that too. Okay. What is the quickest way to become a teacher? So in the Philippines, the quickest way for you to become a teacher is finish a degree in education, whether that's elementary or secondary major, and then get the LET past that, and then you will for sure have a job as a teacher. Another way is the other things that the other guys here shared earlier when they shared their stories, like volunteer or do a part-time freelance, because sometimes you just have to have certain certifications. And I believe Sarah will mention some of that too.
Yeah, so if you don't have a degree in education, which is generally required by a lot of countries, not just the Philippines, but I mean also in the US, you need sometimes even need a master's to teach. But if you don't have that, fear not. There are lots of other certifications that some of us mentioned. Christine mentioned her TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages certificate. PJ and I both have the CELTA, which is from the University of Cambridge. And Adrian said he was like an IELTS trainer teacher. And so there are all these different kinds of certifications that you can get. They will always take time and energy. So Don't go into it thinking it's just going to be a breeze and you just have to sit on the computer and do this thing. And you should also look at the most popular certificates are the CELTA, which is really required if you want to teach in Europe, to be honest with you. That's the one you have to have. There's also TESOL, like what Christine has, and there's also TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, which is slightly different from this foreign language or second language. All of the certificates are valid, but you should really look at what certificate is the most popular and the most in demand in your area, in your country, and in the type of English you want to be teaching. If you want to teach at like Christine and Adrian and PJ have all taught at Inderud, then you might need some different sort of credentials than me, who goes on these language exchanges. So research what you need. But yeah, the big ones are TESOL, TEFL, CELTA. They have varying levels of expense, varying levels of in-classroom experience. If you want to know more about it, we do have some blog posts that we can link later, written articles about the different certifications. And then I wrote a series just all about the CELTA. If you really want to know all the ins and outs of the CELTA, that's on the blog. But yeah, that is a great way to go, a quick way to go if you want to get certified, specifically to teach English as a second language, not really to teach anything else. Those certifications are good.
How can I start teaching without the required qualifications?
So this depends if you want to teach in a foreign country or if you want to teach in your own country. Like if you're teaching in an English-speaking country like the Philippines or the United States, that would be considered ESL because you're teaching it in a country that speaks English. If you want to teach, for example, abroad, check the requirements of companies that are in the country that you are looking at. And some countries are more strict than others when it comes to requirements. And I'm talking about the companies within those countries. Some of them tend to require a college degree, and specifically a degree in education and a TESOL or a CELTA certificate. But there are some companies in certain countries that don't require these. There are some companies that don't require a degree in education, and some don't even require a degree in the first place. And then this one is even more rare, but this also exists. There are companies that don't require a TESOL or CELTA, but you're going to be very hard pressed to find those companies. And if you cannot find a company that doesn't require a degree in education or doesn't require a TESOL or CELTA or TEFL, as Sarah mentioned, then you can always do freelancing. You can teach as a freelancer, and yeah, maybe that may not have as much stability as a full-time job within a company in a foreign country, but it's also an option for people, especially those who don't have the requirements.
Yeah, if you want to start teaching and you have literally zero experience and you know nothing about it, I recommend, if you live in an English-speaking country, definitely, no matter where you live, there will be an organization, a charitable volunteer organization looking for people to help people learn English. I've worked at 2 in Florida and 1 in Virginia. And they are really great because you get to start teaching, you get to learn about teaching, you can practice, but also they have some real training. You go to trainings, you can use the library, you can learn a lot. They will really form you if you can go into it as deep as you want. So I definitely recommend that because there is no requirement other than speaking English and being a nice person. Also, if you have absolutely no teaching qualifications, I do recommend the mobility programs, the language assistantships that I've talked about a couple times before, and we do have a blog post all about them. Now is the season that they're actually taking applications. So generally for them, most of them require some college, but they're geared, it's a youth mobility program. So it's geared toward people with absolutely no experience, and it just takes native speakers and puts them into other places. That is a great way to test out teaching, and it's really nice because it's low stakes. You won't teach full time, which can be really helpful if you're not totally sure about it, you want to try it out, and you have a lot of guidance, just like you can be formed by the volunteer organizations. The teachers that you work with and the program that you're going abroad with will train you. They will get you started on actually learning to be a teacher. So yeah, those are my top recommendations. Volunteer and try a program abroad if you're able. If you live in a country that is not a native English speaking country, I still believe that you can find some charitable organizations that, and you can certainly definitely help. I would recommend looking at, lots of immigrant and literacy groups, because at least even here in Europe, many immigrant groups, the only common language is English, and they are looking for English teachers, native or non-native, just in country, to help give these people the best chance to take advantage of the skill that they have in a foreign country. So yeah, don't worry if you're not in a native English country. I still think you can find opportunities to volunteer.
What are the perks and drawbacks of being a teacher?
So I think the number one perk of being a teacher is really being able to make a huge difference in people's lives. I mean, my students never forget me. Like, they come up to me in the mall, and I just love it when I'm able to see that light bulb go off and know that I was responsible for this new level of understanding. And for me also, it's not just about sparking their intellect. It's about sparking their passion. It's about tapping into their heart. There are very few things that you can do in this life that allow you that kind of privilege, to to be able to connect with somebody so deeply. And for someone that's passionate about social justice, I also consider this my life's work. Like, I always look at the at future generations, and I think this is my contribution to humanity, making these little these little human beings one day grow up to be good big human beings that will care about each other, care about themselves, care about the planet. So in that sense, it's very fulfilling when you see that all of a sudden they're developing a critical sense of things, an ethical sense of things. There's nothing else like it in the world. There's no other feeling like it in the world. It's like Sarah said, it's so addicting. It's like you're just waiting for that buzz every single time. And that's great, because that's going to make you continuously want to become a better teacher. So those are for me the biggest perks of teaching. The two biggest drawbacks are money and time. So let's start with money. Okay. uh, Being a teacher is the most underpaid profession in the world. I don't think any teacher in any country should get paid less than $100,000 every year, because we teach these kids who they are. What I mean, we're not glorified babysitters. I think our profession deserves more respect. You know, teach them to respect themselves, respect each other, respect the world around them. I think that should be something that's compensated and valued much more in this world than it currently is. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is just kiss your life goodbye. Because if you're an English teacher, especially if you're not doing ESL, but even if you're doing ESL, you're planning and grading all the time. So for me, see, my colleagues are laughing because they know exactly what I'm talking about. For me, grading is the bane of my existence. It's actually changed the whole way I look at homework, because I just think I've got to the point. I think once you've been a teacher long enough, you just have to ask yourself, like, am I going to actually grade this? Am I actually going to read this? Because if I'm not, I should not assign it. So just be, just be, don't, my tip to you, especially if you're just starting out, no more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes of homework a day per class. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay? Because it's an undue burden on yourself and your students, and it's going to eat up so much of your time that can go to better things like planning your classes.
So for me, as a teacher, one of the perks of doing my job is that I get to learn from my students. So obviously, as a teacher, you're teaching your students something, whether it's the English language or whatever field you're in. But for me, I teach students from all walks of life, all ages. I've taught chefs, I've taught CEOs, parliamentary advisors, engineers, lawyers from Italy, France, Vietnam, Thailand, you name it. And just the wealth of information that I've gained from being a teacher at entering colleges, which is an international college. I guess I have to mention that. I've had that privilege of teaching at an international school, is just amazing. And I don't think that I could get all this wealth of knowledge from anywhere else. And so it's been amazing for me. And you learn about different values and different beliefs from around the world just by being with these students. And it's really been a way for me to open my mind as a teacher and as a person. It's just been an incredible experience for me.
How have your non-teaching experiences made you a better teacher? I would start by saying that I wouldn't be an effective English teacher if not for my 12 years in the BPO industry. It's just crazy because I know also of some people who have been in the BPO industry maybe even longer than that, but they have not changed in the way they speak English. There's a proper way of using words and pronunciation, the syntax and the technicalities in English. And it has taught me a lot and gave me enough confidence to be an effective teacher to my students because I know how it is to learn the language. And until now, I'm still learning the English language through podcasts and videos and YouTube instructional videos. And I enjoy the journey. And just like Christine mentioned earlier, I also learn a lot from my students. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, as Adrian said, you and Christine in the last question, you learn a lot about yourself through teaching. But I think you also bring who you are and all of the experiences that you have. And the more and more varied experiences that you have just as a human, the more empathy you bring to the classroom, the more you can relate to your students, the more they can relate to you. And I think that is really kind of the crux of a lot of teaching, is building that personal connection. I also think that having in your life outside of English teaching, I hope that everybody thinks in different ways. You should do lots of different kinds of activities and think in a lot of different ways, and then you can bring those ways of thinking into your classroom. Some of the best lessons that I ever have taught have combined my two passions, which is teaching English and medieval manuscripts. And you wouldn't think that you could teach a lesson in English on medieval manuscripts to a bunch of Spanish middle schoolers, but you can, and they can love it. And you'll be surprised, when you bring in parts of yourself, you get really animated and passionate. And also your experiences are going to be new for these people. It's going to keep your classroom fresh, keep the ideas fresh, keep them interested beyond just learning English. The English language in itself is not that interesting unless you love Shakespeare. But the teacher that has all of these crazy stories and crazy passions and shows you things that you didn't even know existed in the world, that's what makes it interesting. And that's what keeps people using English.
So when I'm not teaching, I am running a business. And I've actually recently given that up, and I now teach all the time. But for a long time there, I was running a business. And I think that has really molded me in terms of what skills I know they're going to need in the future. What does the market need from the next generation of not just workers, the next generation of thinkers, of leaders. What does the world need most? What does enterprise need most? So I think being in the business field has given me keen insights to what skills and what kind of knowledge is critical. It's also taught me a lot about attitude, and what kind of attitude is a successful one to have if you're going to be a productive human being. So when I was teaching middle school students and they would come in late, I would tell them, if you were one of my employees a couple more times like this, and I'd have you fired. And they would probably laugh. I say it with a smile on my face and whatnot. But I want them to know that, the habits that we try to form with them in the classroom, and not just coming on time, but having great social skills, being cooperative, solving problems together, finding consensus, discussing things even if you disagree with each other, in a civilized way. These are all necessary skills to be successful, productive human beings in the world. And I know that because I've had to lead other successful, productive human beings at work. So I think in that way, my experience in business has I think it gives me street cred, because when I talk, I know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not like, oh, this teacher was stuck in some ivory tower academe and doesn't know the demands of the real world. I do, and when I bring that into the classroom, they take me very seriously. So that's what I think.
So don't forget, we provide customized lesson plans, curriculum mapping and unit planning, life and career coaching sessions, weekly vlog and blog content related to ESL education. If you want to get more information, send us a message at www.theenglishblog.com, or you can send us a message through our social media, which Sarah will talk about.
So as you watch this video, I really hope that you leave us some comments, tell us how you came into teaching, any questions that you have about getting into teaching. If you'd like more information, like I mentioned, you can find us at theenglishblog.com, and you can find all our blog articles, including stuff about different TESOL certs and teaching abroad. You can also find us on Facebook, where we premiere our videos. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and across all of those platforms. Please reach out to us. Let us know what you think, how you're teaching, any tips you want to share with us, and any questions that you want us to address. We are here for you. So please reach out to us, and we would love to team up and teach more people together.
And as always, guys, keep learning, stay healthy, stay happy. Until next Friday. My name is Adrian.
I'm Christine.
I'm PJ.
And I'm Sarah.
We are the English Blog team. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.